All right, so we've got one last interior photo before we've got to get out there and do our twilight. Now, we showed up a little bit later in the day, around 11 or 12, and we did miss sunrise, and I would have loved to get the sun streaming through this giant picture window into this kitchen. But unfortunately, we couldn't really get in here until later in the day, so that could not happen. Now that we've got some time to kill with a bit of dead, flat light out there, what I'm gonna do is try to recreate that morning sunlight cresting over those trees, lighting up this entire kitchen. Now, I've chosen my composition based on a couple things. You know I love one-point perspectives, but in this case, a one-point perspective is gonna line us up with a pretty ugly house outside, and it's not gonna show the entire scope of the kitchen. So for that reason, I'm doing this two-point perspective, which feels pretty natural to me and gets this entire window in the frame. If I were to do a one point from over here, like I said, we'd get that house out there. If I were to do a one point from over here, we're gonna miss the entire giant window to your left. So for that reason, I have chosen this two-point perspective, which I think feels pretty balanced and works rather nicely. I'm at 24 millimeters, and I'll probably crop in a little bit on the final shot. Let's take a test shot, and I'll show you what this looks like in all natural light. Okay, so it's not bad, but I do think it's a little bit boring and lacking in color and texture. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make some fake sunlight. The sun rises right behind your shoulder, coming right at me almost, which is perfect for this kitchen. It is a shame you missed it, so we're gonna try to fake it with a flash and a gel. Let's go outside and see how that looks. So here we are outside, and as you can see, we have a naked, ungelled flash. We're gonna shoot that in the window and see how it looks. I'm guessing not too great. So that's a little bit harsh. The color doesn't look very morningish, and the light is kind of boring. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to put a gel on here to warm up that light and make it look like sunrise. All right, let's get another test shot. Now our light overall is much warmer, but I still find it pretty boring. So I'm gonna bring in my secret weapon. It's a fake plant, and they're all over the place in these staged homes. They're really light and easy to use as a cookie. A cookie is basically something that goes between the light source and the subject to add an interesting pattern or texture and give your light a little bit of edge, a little bit of interest, rather than just having it be flat and dull. All right, so here's my cookie, some beautiful plastic branches here. I'm gonna use this to make our light a little bit more interesting. So if you can hold that up again, Colleen, as high as you can. All right, so I'm setting a 10-second timer on the iPad so I can do this hands-free, and I'm gonna hold the plant up in front of the flash, between my flash and subject. And as you can see, we've got some really interesting light, and it's a lot more broken up than it was before. Now I'm gonna play with this a little bit and put it in a couple different spots and decide later what I think is the best exposure. So we'll do 2 or 3 more of these. All right, so I've got 3 or 4 different options of flash placement and cookie placement. I'm letting the inside be natural. I want this to feel like it's an early morning photo. You've just walked out to get your coffee and you've got this beautiful light coming over the horizon in the background. We've got really interesting light in here, and I think that's all we really need to make a killer photograph. You don't need to go nuts over lighting. Just keep it simple and straightforward and let the light tell the story. So all I have to do to finish this shot is do a bracket, which I can run right here from my Cam Ranger, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom. Right in front of me, I have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 bracketed exposures, many here, just because this was such a almost dark time of day. I just let it rip and got as many exposures as I could. So backing up a little bit, you can see all of these exposures. You can see us trying to get that plant in the right spot, and we finally nail it, and that looks amazing, except there's a few things that I want to fix. So up here, you can see the light streaming in the window. That looks totally fake. It's kind of a telltale giveaway. And of course, you've got the plant out the window, which is not going to happen. And there's really not a great directionality to the light. It doesn't look like the light is necessarily coming from the left. It looks like it could be coming from anywhere. I mean, yes, you can see it in on the ceiling, but it could be a lot stronger and a lot more believable. So this is a great time of day. I love photographing things at this time of day when the sun is almost off the horizon. You've maybe got 30 minutes of daylight left. Everything is sort of soft and warm and glowy. And this is actually going to be a surprisingly simple edit. I'm going to pick a bracketed exposure here. like that I think matches that time of day. And luckily the white balance right out of the camera here is pretty great. There's maybe a little bit of correction that we'll have to do, but I love the sort of gentle warmth that we're getting. I'm gonna take this exposure and I'm gonna take this exposure and I'm gonna, is that the one? Yeah, I think, cause yeah, if I go back, I start to get door frame. And if I go too far, maybe it's this guy? One of these two? I'm gonna go with this guy. It kind of penetrates deeper onto the right-hand side there, so we'll go with that. I'm gonna take these two photos. I'm gonna, look, the white balance is gorgeous. I just love this time of day. The shots make themselves. Things get substantially easier. They're really starting to take on a nice warmth. With the addition of the gel on that light, oh, looks great. I'm gonna go ahead, right-click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Because we have such a compressed dynamic range, there's not really a lot I need to do to get these images ready. They're pretty much perfect straight out of the camera. I'll probably just think a little bit of contrast is all we're gonna need. Okay, so we've got our images all stacked up. Let's get to work. I'm gonna rename this guy Flash from Fake Goofy Plant. And I'll rename this one Base Layer or Bay, depending on your usage of that word. And this is, again, just incorporating many of the same techniques, but I'm gonna fib a little bit here. I'm gonna add a layer mask and I'm gonna start painting with a brush. Not a giant brush, but I'm just gonna take it off the ceiling first of all. All right, now that looks pretty goofy. What I need to do here is sort of sell the lie, right? I need to get a nice sharp shadow coming off this corner that's gonna make our sunlight believable. And I'm just painting that in. Let's see if I can get that with our brush, and there we go. Right? Now it's like the sun is actually in our image. The sun is out here somewhere. Sun is over here, streaming in light. It's almost as if he is here, just maybe he's off camera a little bit, and the light is streaming in at that angle. Without my beautiful illustration, and without the masked flash, it looks like there's a light right there. As soon as we draw that angle in, we get the sun in the right spot. So now I've made a bit of an egregious mistake here. You can tell that we're holding up the plant outside the window, and at this point I haven't really used more than one bracketed exposure, but this is a great example of why. It's going to save my butt to go back to Lightroom and find another bracketed exposure where that plant is not there. And I'm going to go ahead and use my little trick here to settings, match total exposures. That's going to bring the exposure of this one down. I'm going to right click, edit in Photoshop. It's going to pop right up here. I'm going to click, shift, and drag. And when you click, shift, and drag, that is, again, click your mouse, push the shift button on the keyboard, drag into your working document. Photoshop will automatically align right to the pixel this layer with the one below it. So I'm going to rename this Plant Fix. I'm going to Alt Option click to add a black layer mask, grab my white brush, and I'm just going to paint out the plant that should have never been there in the first place. Make sure that we are good to go there. And there is, I mean, the majority of our picture, right? That sunlight is coming in beautifully. I wonder if I could play with the angle of this a little more. Do I want a less steep angle? Let's try it. Maybe like here. Oh, you remember to keep that edge of your sun somewhat sharp. See, now I'm screwing it up. Here we go. That looks pretty good. I'll take it off at the back of that. That feels a bit more believable right there. Perfect. What's going on down here? All right, so now we have a nice sharp line of the sun coming in. I'm making my brush almost as hard edged as I can, and then I'm backing it off one step to give you an idea. Does that make sense? The sun comes down over here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So we have our fake sun in there. Maybe it's a little softer. I don't know. I'm just playing with it. But I think you get the gist. We'll give it a little softness there, just to kind of match that nice morning light. Now, I think you guys know the drill from here. I'm going to go ahead and add a solid color layer. Go with a more orangey sort of morning light color. Set the blend mode to color. Set my opacity to like 3%. And it's just going to tie everything together. It's going to kind of knock out, neutralize those blues that you wouldn't really see at this time of day. And you see like that very, very subtle difference that it makes. And if I go to 10%, that's a bit much. 5%, 3%, just kind of knock it down. And like I said, pull out some of those blues that wouldn't really exist at this time of day. So I think that looks awesome. As usual, I'm going to go ahead in and clean this up. Command-Alt-Shift-E. You know, before I do that, I'm going to add a touch of contrast. Yeah, linear contrast is a preset I use fairly often. Just a very gentle dash of contrast. Command-Alt-Shift-E to flatten all to a new layer. And then I'm going to clone out some of these outlets which aren't the sexiest. And we'll clean up the ceiling here. Let's see if Photoshop can use its magic on this massive vent again. Unbelievable. Perfect. Okay. I don't hate these. I find this to be somewhat distracting. And again, ask your clients. Like I said, I know this client. I know they hate outlets in their photographs, so I'm just taking them out almost out of habit. But that looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and save that and go back into Lightroom. All right, so here we are in Lightroom. The vertical lines are looking great. I love to see it. A little texture, a little clarity. Maybe like some vibrance and saturation. Super, super subtle edits. Again, I'm a big fan of like tiny little adjustments that add up. I think on the whole, I'm really liking this. I could use a crop here. I don't think we need so much fridge. I don't think we need the right-hand side window there. I think the beauty in this shot is in right in front of us. And there it is. I love it. Done. On to the next one.